Well, hi there, welcome everyone to the first tutorial video for HHCOS at home. And in this video we are going to be looking at the Ave Verum Corpus of Mozart. This is the tutorial video for the bass part. So basses, you're very welcome. I hope you're all well, and I'd say it's nice to see you, but you know what I mean. Tenors, altos, sopranos, it's equally nice to see you if you've accessed this video. But if you have, you might find that it's now a good time to go back to the YouTube channel and to access the tutorial video which is labelled with your individual voice part on there. So in that channel you'll find 4 videos, one for each voice part labelled up. So you may find that more beneficial. Of course, if you want to join us to look through the bass part, and or if you think that maybe excuse me, you've had a change of voice over the course of lockdown, then you're in potentially the right place. Sopranos, if you've had a change of voice and are looking at the bass line, then I think we've got some issues, but never mind. So basses, you're very welcome. I hope you're well. And I hope you enjoy going through this piece with me in this video. The video is here for your use, so please stop the video, start the video, pause, rewind, do whatever you wish with it over the course of the next few weeks. We're going to use this video as the kind of learning of the parts, and then we're going to come together in a few live Zoom calls to see how we can start to kind of try and piece things together. And we're doing this because obviously we haven't been doing very much singing over the course of the last 12 weeks or so. We'd hoped that things maybe would have changed a little bit more by now, but it looks as though we are in this kind of situation for the foreseeable future, and it seems a shame not to try and do something together over the course of the next little while. So this is a work in progress. It's all a bit of an experiment basis. So please, if you've got any feedback on these videos, or if you've got any feedback on the content of the videos, the way that it's delivered, anything like that, if things are going too quickly or too slowly, or things need to be played more or less, then I'd be really grateful to hear that feedback before I make any more videos. You can get that to me personally, directly, by email, or you can email any comments to the performance committee. Please keep your comments in relation to the content of the videos, and try not to give any feedback on the messy corner of my room, or on the lockdown haircut, if at all, or lack of haircut if at all possible. That would be great. Okay, so without further ado, we are going to have a look at the Ave Verum Corpus of Mozart. So hopefully you've all got your music in front of you bases. We sent out a PDF copy of the Ave Verum Corpus of Mozart a couple of times over the course of the last few weeks. So you should have access to that. You should have that in your emails. 2 pages, very short motet, something which a lot of you will probably be quite familiar with. If you haven't sang it before, excuse me, I'd imagine that you have maybe heard it before. Wonderful little piece, great thing to get to know, and something fresh and new that we can all come together and sing over the course of the next couple of weeks. So I hope you enjoy getting to know this one. We're going to focus in our attention in this video on learning the bass part. We're not going to spend a huge amount of time on things like articulation, dynamics, or interpretation. We'll do that when we're together, all 4 parts at the same time. But we will look at the line, we will look at the context of the line, we'll do a little bit of practice, we'll look at the text, and we'll look at some phrasing, some breathing, things like that, just to give us a good idea by the time we get to the end of the video of exactly what is going on in the bass part for this piece. So without further ado, basses, I think we should probably get warmed up ever so slightly before we start to sing. I hope you have all still been singing. I know you've probably not been singing near as much as you normally would have over the course of the last little while, but hopefully we can start to remedy that a little bit. So if you are willing, please stand. You may find it easier if you're working from the video at the computer to be sat down, and that's fine as long as your back is nice and straight, you're sitting on the edge of the seat, and you are nice and comfortable. We want to be able to access the support mechanism as well as we possibly can. If you are going to stand, folks, please, feet shoulder width apart, knees nice and soft, don't become too rigid or tense. And it's maybe an idea just to kind of let those shoulders, just shrug the shoulders off, a little bit of a warm up. You might want to stretch the arms out in front, stretch them up above. You can lean into the sides. Very difficult to do this without yawning. But there we are, that's fine as well. Nothing wrong with a good yawn before you sing, get everything opened up. Okay, and we're going to do a couple of exercises and then we'll get into the piece. So let's begin with a few simple scales bases just to get the voices working, and we'll go from there. So, yeah, and we'll work up a semitone at a time. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, bases, that takes us up to an F at the top, so don't worry if you're finding that's a little bit high, that's fine. First bases, you're probably okay there. Second bases, you may have had to drop down an octave, and that's absolutely fine if you had to do that. And or, of course, just kind of sit that last one out. Let's do something a bit quicker bases. Let's get the voices moving around. We don't necessarily need to be too active in this piece. It's quite a... well, I suppose that the majority of the music in the piece is legato. It's quite smooth. The phrases are quite long and sustained. There's not a huge amount of movement, but still not a bad idea just to get the voices working a little bit. As I said, particularly considering that we maybe haven't been singing as much as we normally would. We'll do this one. And we'll move up semitone at a time. We'll do half a dozen of these or so. Here we go. 3, 4. Good, and again that takes us to the E at the top there basis. If you were finding that the end there, the last one, there was a little bit on the high side, then not a major problem. That's fine, we won't need those notes for this particular piece. Good thing about this particular piece is that the majority of the notes here will sit right in the middle of everyone's register. There won't be anything here which is too high or too low, I don't think. I think we should be absolutely fine here. It sits in a really nice rich place in the voice. One more exercise and then we'll make a start. So let's come down. Pairs of notes from the tonic, getting further and further away, but always ending up back at exactly the same place. Moo, 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 like a cow, please, bases. 3 and 4. There we go, excellent. Okay, hopefully that means that by now everybody is warmed up and ready to go. If you want to repeat any of those exercises, then just rewind the video and take those again. If you're ready to go, then let's continue. So, Ave Verum Corpus, Mozart. From the top, please, bases. We'll work through in chronological order here. Your piece, if you like, is divided into almost 3 little sections, I suppose, more than anything else. You've got section 1, which runs, I suppose, from the beginning up until the end of bar 18. So that's the majority of the first page. You've then got a very short 4-bar interlude, which leads us into what you might want to think about as a kind of middle section, short middle section, 8-bar middle section essentially, which runs from the last 2 bars of the first page up onto the top system of the second page. And then you've got a third section, a kind of ending almost, which is it's quite similar, I suppose, to what's going on in the first section, but not the same. We don't revisit exactly the same material. But that begins in the last bar of the top line of the second page for the sopranos and altos, and you join basses with the tenors in bar 31, beginning of the second line. And that runs through to the end of the piece. So if you like to think about the piece in 3 short little sections, or 3 parts, if you like, when it comes to rehearsing them, when it comes to thinking about, you know, how am I getting on with getting to know this piece, thinking about it in those 3 individual sections is going to be quite a good idea to help kind of break up the learning process a little bit. Anyway, without further ado, we are in D major. Markings at the beginning of the piece, we have adagio, so a slow tempo with the marking sotto voce for all four parts. And that is pretty much all that's marked on this particular version when it comes to dynamics. So that's all we're going to mention just now. Sotto voce in an under voice, a soft kind of warm sound is what we're after. Don't worry about that too much in the meantime. Just concentrate more on actually finding these notes and getting used to where they sit. We'll talk dynamics, articulation and phrasing at a later date, as I said, when we're all together. That will make more sense in doing that. So D major, 2-bar introduction. And you're in there basically, you sing the tonic. Nice and easy one to find, particularly after that 2-bar introduction. You can hear that your note is present all the way through. Ave, Ave Verum Corpus, natum de Maria Virgine. So a simple line basis to get us started, really. Not quite as simple as a tenor line. If you glance up to see what they're doing, they have the grand total of 2 notes to cover in the entirety of their first line. So you've got a little bit more than that, not a great deal, but I think you get maybe 3 notes. So there you go. He obviously trusted his basses absolutely without any reservation. So we begin on the tonic basis, and we're moving by minim, 2 beats in every note, and so on and so forth. What I'd like to do is I'd like to break this first phrase in 2, please. So I'd like to do Ave, Ave Verum Corpus, breath there, please, if we could, and then Natum de Maria Virgine, all as one. So we're kind of splitting this first part into 2 individual sections. And the pronunciation of text, Ave, Ave Verum Corpus, Natum de Maria Virgine. And I'll tell you what the text is all about a bit later on, unless of course you've already gone and looked that up and you'll have a decent idea of what you're singing about here. So let's try that basis. I won't sing this time, I'll just play the line and you can sing along with it. Let me give you a counting of 4. So after 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Breathe. And there we are. Okay, I'm just going to keep a kind of pulse here basis as we go, just to make sure that we're all kind of, you know, in the same place at the same time, essentially. Rhythmically speaking, because of the fact that you're only moving on the minim, it sometimes feels like an awful long time before you want to make that next switch. When the tune is in, you get a much more... You can hear it moves in crotchets. And that makes it a bit easier to kind of keep track of exactly where you are in the bar and keep track of exactly what's going on round about you. Interestingly enough, you move exactly the same here rhythmically as the tenors do all the way through this first little passage. The sopranos and the altos are the ones that move a little bit more, that have the tune essentially. Sopranos essentially have the tune, altos have something that kind of supports that. But you are providing a really important, strong harmonic backbone here basis. And if your line is not accurate and solid, then the parts above you will find it very, very difficult indeed to sustain the correct note at the correct time here. So although it seems simple, it's very, very important. Let's run into that from the 2-bar introduction basis, okay? And this time what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the tenors and basses together, so that we've got an idea roughly as to kind of what's going on with the other part next to you. Okay, so here's a 2-bar intro. Okay, ignore that last little bit there, basis. That's incorrect. I'm reading from a part here which is smudged when I've printed it, and I've given you the wrong tenor note there. Your note was absolutely correct, but the tenor note was not. So, together, 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 and then we come down and back up, Then in octaves. So you can hear that's the correct version of it. The tenors stay on that same note all the way through bars 8, 9 and 10, where you're moving Maria Virgine. Okay, so that gives us an idea of what's going on there at the start. Here's the part with some light accompaniment, i.e. with a little bit more of the soprano and alto in. From the very beginning, here's the introduction once again. Something like that towards the end. Again, sorry basses, that was my fault there. A bit of an error towards the end of that line. Let me just take that one once again for you with the full accompaniment. And so on and so forth. So you can hear that pretty much most of the way through there, your line is mirrored in the accompaniment bases, but there's just the occasion towards the end there in bars 8 and 9. There's a little bit more goes on in the accompaniment in the left hand of the piano, if you like, or the lowest part, which isn't exactly what you do. At bar 9, for example, it moves a little bit and you don't, you just hold that note all the way through bar 9. Okay, so let's carry on and let's have a look at the next phrase, please, basses. So we're going to go from the beginning of bar 11. So just where we stopped there, you just sang Virgine, and then up the octave, Vere passum, 1, 2, immolatum, 1, 2, in cruce pro homine. So, as you can hear, a little bit more complicated for two reasons. First reason is that we've got these little gaps that start appearing in the line here, basses. So, the first gap, Vere passum, 1, 2. Then you're in with immolatum and 1, 2. In cru. You've got those gaps to make sure that you don't jump in early on. So always a danger here that we do just get slightly overexcited and come in those rests. So worthwhile penciling in a wee mark round about them, particularly the one basses in bar 15. And the one in bar 15 is very, very important because as you can see, the only voice part that comes in at the start of bar 15 should be the soprano part. We shouldn't have anybody else joining in there. The tenors, the altos and the basses all come in together at the halfway point of the bar. So if you find yourself jumping in there early, the effect will be slightly ruined, unfortunately. So that's one that I'd like you to really pay attention to make sure that you don't come in early in that place. The previous one is just as important, don't get me wrong, in bar 13, just before you sing immolatum, but as you can see, the sopranos, the altos and the tenors are all in at the start of that bar. So it wouldn't be quite as obvious if we had a stray voice crept in that place than it would be in bar 15. So bar 15 is the very important one. So here's your line from Vere passum in bar number 11 basses. Let's go from that place. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, good, that's the idea. So as you can see, we've got those gaps. You've also got quite an important note here, basses, to make sure that you're absolutely happy with finding, and that is the E sharp, which you're going to find in bar number 14. So a chromatic note here, chromatic kind of shift a moment here, which is very, very important. And we need you to make sure again that you're absolutely in the middle of that note, and then we don't have anything which is kind of round about the edges here. Vere passum Immolatum, a real T, as you can hear. That chromatic movement up through those three notes. Immolatum, and the Immola. Great chord there. Yeah, we need you to be absolutely firmly on that E sharp. So worthwhile kind of making a wee note against that as well. Excuse me. Finding your note at the beginning of bar 11 on the Vere Passum shouldn't be a problem basis, because that is just going up the octave from the previous note that you had at the end of bar 10. So you would just have sang Te Maria Virgine Vere Passum Immolatum in cruce promine. It's a little bit of a filler roundabout there to let you hear. And that was the soprano Q. In cru. And then you come in. So that's bar 15 into bar 16 there basis. So let me go from De Maria Virgine once again for you. So De Maria Virgine. So on and so forth. We'll cover that in just a second. This will be an interlude that kind of follows on. So good. Okay, that gives us then something up until the end of bar 18 there basis. So if I go back to the very start and kind of run all that together, should give you an idea of roughly kind of what's going on here. So from the very beginning, I'm going to put in a kind of light accompaniment, something which resembles what's there, just to kind of try and keep us right, keep us in the right place. And you can try and sing along with this and keep a hold of your individual part as you go. Here it is from the top. There we go, into the next section. So hopefully that was useful, just kind of going through in sequence like that. There's a bit of help there on your part, but not exclusively. So you can start to hear the other things that are going on round about you there, basis as you kind of come through that first section. Most of your line is quite findable, if you like, but there's just a couple of wee places there. Immolatum, for example, to be very, very careful of, to make sure that you don't end up in the wrong place at the wrong time there. And those intervals, the immolatum, are very, very narrow indeed. Immolatum, all those semitone movement there. Okay, let's go on into the second part of the piece, so the middle section, if you like. And this is the last 2 bars of the first page into the top of the second page basis. So we've got cuius latus perforatum unda fluxit et sanguine. Now that reminds me, did I do the text and the breathing for that previous section? No, I probably didn't. So let's just, before we move on, go back with me to bar number 8, 9, 10, 11. Vere passum immolatum, all in one. Well, for you, no, it's not actually, sorry, I beg your pardon. Vere passum, 2-beat rest, make the most of it, take the breath basis. Everyone else will carry on there. Immolatum, 2-beat rest, everyone will breathe there. Even the sopranos are going to pop a breath in before in cruce pro homine. And I would not want you to then go through in cruce pro homine all the way to the end, please, there. And the pronunciation here is in cruce, please, a ch sound, in cruce pro homine at the end there, please, bases. Okay, so moving on, sticking with the theme of pronunciation, our next little section, last 2 bars of the first page, cuius latus perforatum unda fluxit et sanguine. So I don't want any cu juice at the beginning here, please, bases. So any dairy farmers amongst you, this is not the time or the place for anything along those lines. Thank you very much. Cuy, a use sound. Cuius latus perforatum, breath there, please. Unda fluxit et sanguine. Go all the way through that. So essentially, again, we're splitting the phrase in two here. Cuius latus perforatum, breath. Unda fluxit et sanguine. Here's the line. 2, 3, 4. Cuius latus perforatum unda fluxit et sanguine. That's the idea. Finding that a little bit low today for some reason. There we are. If you have those kind of lower notes down there and you're confident that the last one in particular, sanguine, needs a good rich sound and a little bit more volume potentially. Some of the first bases might find that a little bit on the low side. Okay, so that is the line. A bit more adventurous than the previous few lines here. He is changing key here. He's doing something a wee bit more exotic when it comes to the harmony. And as such, that's reflected in the individual parts. So here it is once again. I'm just going to play it this time so you can sing along. Last 2 bars of the first page bases into the second page. 2, 3, 4. So there we go. The second half bass is probably unda fluxit et sanguine. Again, it's the introduction of these semitone intervals that are just maybe the thing which is going to be slightly off-putting in comparison to the rest of the line. Those are going to be the bits that you've got to be very, very careful of. So, una flu, just coming down there on the semitone. Una flu, another one, sit et sanguine. That may take just a couple of attempts to get that one to settle into the voice basis, the second half of that phrase. First half of the phrase, not too bad at all, I don't think. Cuius latus perforatum. Quite straightforward there on that one as you cross over the pages, which is nice. And finding the start note for this section basis, the cuius. Again, you're going to be coming up the octave from your final note that you sang in the last, at the end of the last phrase. So, homine. And here's the little interlude. And you're on the tonic of the chord which has been played as well. Cool. So it's nice and easy to pick up from that perspective also. So 2 choices. You either use the lower octave which you finished on at the end of the previous phrase, or you use that bar just before you come in. Cool. And you go for the tonic. Ya da da da. Cool. Don't resist it. Just go for the one that kind of springs to mind. That's the most obvious to find, and you're in the right place there. The only danger, the only possible problem that you might have is that you try and pitch the octave below, and that's not going to work. You're going to find then that that's going to cause you major problems as you start to try and negotiate your way into the top of the second page. So here's the little interlude basis, and I'll play something which is a kind of, again, a rough kind of version of what's going on round about you from the last 2 bars of the first page into the top of the second page. But I'm going to start, I'll tell you what I'll do, cru, in, cru, from there. So this is the end of bar 15 into bar 16. 1, 2, in, cru, che, pro, homine. So there you go, basses, something like that. Apologies, there was a slight error there in the right hand part, but your part remained correct through that little section. As you can hear, the overall harmony of the whole thing is becoming much, much more chromatic here, especially from Unda Fluxit, when you're into this kind of territory of... And then we resolve back to where we started, almost there at that place. So it does come back quite quickly, but there's just that little moment of it being just that wee bit more adventurous, a few more things to think about there. So that line basis might require just a few times through before you feel 100% happy with it. That's one probably to kind of rewind the video, have another go at, and so on and so forth until you feel happy enough. And as I said, split that into two. Cuis latus perforatum, breath, unda fluxit et sanguine, breath. Two separate phrases of equal length will work very well in that place. Okay, then we're on to the final lap, if you like, the final home straight. And this is a section which is quite reminiscent of the first part, but not exactly the same basis. So this is going to be more straightforward from the point of view of finding your notes until we get to the very, very last line. And then there's a little bit of difficulty in that. So from that point of view, we'll go from bar 31, please. This is your line. 2, 3, 4. Esto nobis pregustatum in mortis examine. 4, 1, 2. In mortis examine. Okay, so a little bit trickier at the end there, as you can hear, but the first half of that's not too bad at all. One thing to say here, what we're going to do is esto nobis pregustatum. I'm going to take that all in one, please. So esto nobis pregustatum, breath. It's going to be a quick one. In mortis examine. Well, again, we'll split that into two phrases, basis with a breath in the middle, please. And the pronunciation esto, not estu, please. Esto nobis pregustatum in mortis examine is what we're after here. Here's the line on its own, so you can sing it, so you can try it. 2, 3, 4. So the octave jump there at the end and then back up by a step is not maybe exactly what you expect, but that's what he's given us. So mortis examine. We finish there. Then we're back in the same territory that we had earlier on with those bars, but the rest at the beginning of the bars. Don't jump in early here. Again, have a look above you. You can see that the sopranos come in first. In mo, in mo. We use that as our cue basis. Don't come in there too early. If you do, then it ends up being something which just does not work. We kind of completely overshadow that soprano entry, and it can ruin the moment there quite considerably. So that's a very, very important one. Worth a circle. It's going to feel like an awful long time before you actually do come back in with your phrase halfway through bar 38. But that is just the case. That is just the way it is. So you just have to get used to waiting there, and that should hopefully not be an issue once you get used to the piece. But certainly something to watch out for. So something else to say about this little part, through bar 31, you can see here that you are with the tenors. So basses and tenors in this little section move together most of the time in thirds. Most of the way through this little section you move in thirds. The sopranos and altos also move together, and most of the time they are moving in thirds, but you are one bar out of sync with one another, if you like to think of it in that way. So the sopranos and the altos begin the phrase in bar 30, and you begin the phrase in bar 31. So it's a very, very similar phrase that you share rhythmically, and a kind of echo effect is created here, basis, if we get it right. If we don't, and we end up singing along with the sopranos and the altos, we've got a mixture of harmonies there which don't really come together, and obviously that's not what he intended here at all. So you've got to be careful of two things. First and foremost, you've got to be careful that you don't, when you hear the sopranos and altos start this section, think, oh, I should be in, and join them. You've got to wait one bar later. The second thing you've got to be careful of is that you don't get pulled up onto the tenor line. They're in thirds with you. You're here. They're there. As you can hear. Until there. So until the end of the line and the parts separate, then you are with them pretty much in thirds all the way through. So just again something to be aware of, not something to obsess over, and certainly not something to worry about too much. But if you're aware of it, the chances of things going wrong there are much, much less than if we are unaware of what's happening in that particular place. So something to watch out for. So let's just try this little section basis. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you one bar lead in, if you like. So I'm going to play bar 29 into bar 30. So 29 is the little lead up. Sopranos and altos. And you're in there at the beginning of 31 with that G. Quite a tricky one to find, but one that just needs a fair bit of rehearsal, and it should sit into the voice quite nicely eventually once you get to know exactly how it feels. Okay, bar 29. Sopranos, and your entry. 2, 3, 4. 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Off. Okay, that's the idea. So as you can hear, you've got those intervals of the third running through most of that section in the middle line of the second page. And you can hear the echo effect there when we had that going all together, which is something, as I said earlier, just to try and get used to as much as you can. And then when we get basses to the end, again, there's a few things to watch out for here. So when I talk about the end, I am talking about the middle of bar 38 into bar 39. And your line, in mortis examine. So again, a bit of chromatic movement here. Come down all those 5 notes. So again, very, very narrow intervals coming down basses. Don't over pitch those. Don't find as though you're coming down too far here, or we could end up in the wrong place. The other thing to say here, please, is can we do in mortis breath there? A quick one, so that we all there have a breath and sing examine together at the end after that tiny little lift and that tiny little break in that place. So in mortis examine, breath in that place, please, basses, if you wouldn't mind. Okay, let's just try and sing that one. So here it is. I'll give you a counting of, well, let me give you. So that's the soprano part from halfway through bar 37. You can see that they're going in more, and you're afterwards there halfway through bar 38. And as you can see what I mean there from earlier, it does feel like quite a long time that you're waiting before you actually come in. So the sopranos, it will be 1, 2, basses. 2, 3, 4, off. And also that extra breath there just before examine should give us lots and lots of support to hold that 4-beat note at the end all the way through to the end of the bar without it starting to droop or dip or anything along those lines. So yeah, finding basses your note halfway through bar 38 is another one which is quite tricky. The sopranos are giving you in more, in more. using that as a kind of reference point. It makes life slightly easier, but it's not easy as such. Again, this was one which is probably just going to take a fair amount of practice to get that absolutely cemented into the ear without any kind of worry of anything else that's going on. Let me go from the soprano entry, and this time let me give you a little bit of kind of light accompaniment roundabout so you can hear some of the harmony that's happening. So the same place, this is halfway through bar 37 for the sopranos with your cue. And so on and so forth. So you can hear there that your line coming down, the tune is going up the way, and the tune is equally chromatic here. So precision is the key here, basses, in this part at the bottom of the page. Bar 39, 40, 41, so on and so forth. Think up as you come down. Don't overpitch that jump down into the bottom end of the voice either. It'll be tempting after having been up in that kind of middle register to really kind of push that low end down there, but don't be too tempted to give us too much there. Quite an understated end is what we're after. Okay, basses, that takes us all the way through the entire piece, phrase by phrase if you like, section by section. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go all the way back to the start and I'm going to play all the way through. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to do a kind of quasi accompaniment as much as I possibly can, just to give us an idea of kind of roughly what's going on. We'll be doing a separate accompaniment track that you can kind of sing along with at a later date, but really the purpose of this video is just to kind of get used to the individual part. So that's the focus of this. But this is just a kind of way for you to kind of try singing all the way through to see how you get on. And as I said earlier, stop and pause this if you wish and go back and cover sections again if that would be useful. But let me go from the very beginning all the way through and you can try and sing your line against what else is going on here to see how you feel about what we've just covered in the rest of the video. So I'm going all the way back to the start, basses, and I'll begin after 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. There we go, basses. That's all the way through. Apologies, my pedal was running away from me halfway through there, so I had to try and chase it with my feet, which wasn't particularly helpful. Slightly easier than the tenor video, though. Take 1 of the tenor video, the keyboard and the amplifier and the computers and everything else all collapsed midway through. So that was take 2 had to be done, and a very sore foot after a heavy electric piano landed on it. But there we are, never mind. These things happen in virtual music making, as they say. So Bases, Luke, thank you very much. Oh, the translation of the text was the other thing that we talked about, Bases, wasn't it? So the translation of your text I've got here somewhere. Just bear with me. Let me find this. I'm dealing with various bits of technology here as we go. As you can imagine, this is not the most straightforward thing to do, but we've got a good translation here which gives us a kind of overall idea of what's going on. So, hail true body born of the Virgin Mary, who truly suffered, sacrificed on the cross for man, whose pierced side overflowed with water and blood, be for us a foretaste in the test of death. So there we are, Bases. That is a rough idea or a kind of overall translation of kind of what we're singing about there in this piece. I hope you've enjoyed the video. I hope it's been quite useful in getting to know the piece. As I say, use it as you wish. Rewind, restart, pause, do whatever is the most useful. And if you do have any feedback on it, then please let us know. Remember, please, this is all a work in progress. We're all, trying our best here to do something a bit new and different. So any kind of feedback would be gratefully received. So thanks, Bases. I really hope you're staying safe and well, and I'm looking forward to connecting with you at some point soon on a Zoom call. In the meantime, stay safe, look after yourselves, and enjoy hopefully a bit more singing. Thanks again. See you soon. Bye for now.